Welcome everybody back to another astrology video. So at this moment of recording this video for you, Venus is about to station retrograde in about an hour or so's time. So feels like a poignant moment to do the promised video from last time about taking this deep dive into Venus retrograde and also taking her through the houses. Really looking forward to this transit, actually. It is certainly one of the more anticipated events of 2025. Now that the Mars retrograde is technically over, the baton has been passed on to Venus now, and she is going to sort of set the pace and the tone for the next 6 weeks and preparing the part of our lives where Neptune is going to arrive at the end of this month, and then, of course, Saturn shortly thereafter. So there is a bit of a method in the madness. There is so much to unpack with these cycles in preparation for the astrology that's to come, which is just so next level. But the month of March itself is just so tricky. It's just so difficult to kind of encapsulate a theme or a direction to take. And so it really is just this retrogradation, the sense of going slow, taking your cues from Venus and observing. So today I just want to sort of share with you some of my insights around Venus retrograde and this cycle in particular, and take you through the houses as well. So before I start that though, next week, Wednesday the 12th, it'll be Tuesday the 11th in the Northern Hemisphere, my Contemporary Astrology Program for beginners, year one, level one, will be open. It's open for enrollment now. We start next week. So if you've been kind of umming and ahhing, sitting on the fence about getting started in astrology, I'd certainly invite you to take a look at the link I'll post below, where that will direct you to my website. You can read a little bit about the program, what's on offer in year one. And then, of course, that will direct you to the app from which the course program runs from. So with the program, obviously we learn the basics, houses, signs, planets, aspects, they're the meat and potatoes of astrology. But included in year one are some of probably what might be slightly more advanced concepts and factors in astrology, but I still think they're so very important for basic chart reading. And that is lunar phases, synodic cycles, fixed stars, and essential dignities. So that's sort of semester B and a little bit more of the advanced beginners. So if you have any questions about the program, if you want to reach out to me for whatever reason, please feel free to do so. There's a contact page on my website. Send me an email. You can't private message me here on YouTube, but you can on Instagram, which is probably the social media I access the most. So I'll be there, ask your questions, and I really look forward to seeing you in class. Of course, there's the pay in full options. There's the payment payment plan is the word I'm looking for. And because the course is actually in Australian dollars, if you're in the US, thanks to the exchange rate, it will be quite a significant discount for you. So if that's also an issue, something to consider. All right, so with that done and dusted, let us get started looking at Venus. So today, at least for me, March 3. And Venus is going to station retrograde, be March 2 if you're in the US, or even in Europe. And so that's going to start at 10 degrees of Aries. Without fail, of course, if you've got a planet or a point at 10 Aries, you're going to have an activation. If Venus is your time lord this year, so your perfected planet, which she is mine, this too will be a significant cosmic upgrade for you. So Venus stations kind of now at 10 Aries, and she's going to backtrack all the way to 24 Pisces. So she is going to cross a sign boundary. I use the whole sign house system predominantly. So she will not only cross the sign boundary, she's also going to move into a new house. So when we think of this Venus retrograde, yes, it crosses two signs, but the majority of the retrograde is in Aries. So, it's an Aries retrograde essentially. Now, once she's about to cross into Aries, I will do into Pisces. I will do a secondary video, because there's going to be a very qualitative difference to how we experience that part of the retrograde, predominantly because while she's in Aries, she's technically in her position of detriment, which is a more of a challenging position for Venus because she's Venus and she's occupying the home of Aries and she's retrograde. So not too fun on paper, at least. When she moves into Pisces, she will transition from her position of detriment into exaltation. Now, I've got quite a bit to say about that. I've said it a little bit in the Golden Circle membership for March. That's also an option if you want to sort of learn astrology with me, but in a less technical fashion. That's a very qualitative difference. And we will experience that retrograde, that portion of the retrograde quite differently. So she will enter Pisces on the 27th of March. So just a few weeks' time. And so she will, obviously, she's going to hit the North Node. She's going to be there with Saturn. But there will be that will be an interesting part of the cycle. And I'm also looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to it all, which is, I'm usually not quite as optimistic about it, but personally, I feel ready for this upgrade. So, that's what retrogradations do. Yes, they're not fun, and particularly Venus, because Venus is the most felt of all of the retrogrades. Yes, we've just been through Mars and we're sort of tidying up that journey now. But that's kind of a little bit more fraught with frustration. Obviously, in Cancer, it had a different level to it. I talked about that already. But with Venus, it's more felt. These are the things that are very subjectively personal for us. Venus is that. And when she retrogrades, as she does every 18 months or so, and she's going to do so again in 2026 through Scorpio Libra. So when Venus retrogrades, essentially, we are being invited to think about and reflect upon the ways in which we have compromised, where we have sacrificed or compromised our happiness, our desires, our wants for the sake of something or someone else. And this is the tricky part because that's what Venus does. She is the harmonizer. She is the unifier. She binds and she connects. And anyone who is in relationship, doesn't have to be romantic. It can also be in friendships. Sometimes we have to compromise. We have to sometimes we don't honor ourselves. We sometimes give hoping to get, and then we sort of maybe feel rejected or violated or somehow not appreciated. And so when Venus retrogrades, it's our time to pull in all those Venusian desires closer to us, to really remunerate on them, to think about them, reflect upon them, and ask ourselves to upgrade, to reinforce, particularly in Aries. So Venus is our planet of relationships, of desire, of attraction. She's not Mars, because Mars goes out and chases. Venus is the receiver. She is the vessel from which the light pours into. And so when we don't have firm boundaries, when we don't honor what is right for us. This can be in personal relationships, it could be our relationships to ourselves, could be relationship to money, our career, lots of different areas of life. And of course, we've got to look to our Aries house for some insight around that, and quite possibly the houses that Venus rules for you. And your natal placement too. So there's quite a few factors there, but obviously Aries is the main situation here. So Venus also represents our treats, our trinkets, those little luxuries in life that makes it that makes it nice. You know what I mean? Kind of makes it beautiful and pretty and all the things. Venus is our niceties, our pleasantries. She's kind of our milk and honey and eggs, those rich, abundant vessels of moisture that we would add to the dry ingredients, our flour and our sugar that, creates that beautiful bread or dough that rises. So Venus is the great unifier and the great connector. When she's in Aries and when she's retrograde, she's not desiring to do those things. She needs to turn her energy inward and figure things out. And that's the thing that we're really grappling with Venus in Aries. So what's really interesting about the sort of macro cycle of this journey, and not just of Venus, but Venus is now in Mars's home. She's in Aries. And the ruler of Aries, Mars, has just been retrograde in Cancer. So that has been a time, predominantly since the beginning of 2025, where we have opened old wounds, where the past might have come back to the surface in order to pierce the veil, look at things, poke and prod, and figure out maybe what our activations, our triggers, things from the past. And the thing is, when a planet is retrograde, it's closer to us. So it's always asking for our attention. So some things have come up probably for many of us in the Mars in Cancer retrograde phase. And Cancer is an energy of remuneration, of spiraling in, of that inward kind of self-protection and defense. But now Mars is handing the baton over, essentially. Venus is visiting Mars's home and the dynamics have shifted. So Mars in Cancer was the remuneration, the asking why. Why did this happen? Or, whether it's stuff from childhood, whether it's stuff from our past, recent or historic. And now we are shifting from the remuneration of the why to the action of the what. And that is the essential difference from kind of getting out of maybe sort of trauma-informed stuff. Like, it's great to have a look at it. We did that. And now it's okay, well, what do I do from here? What action do I need to take to protect myself in future, to honor boundaries, to honor myself? Because Aries is the sign of me, and Venus is about me as well when she's in Aries. I mean, I could go on and on and on about that. Hopefully you get the idea here. So we've got Venus in the most archetypically feminine planet that we have. And Venus is the multiplier. She gets light or she gets the source and she multiplies things. So Venus is the infinite giver. And when she's retrograde, we got to hold in on that giving. We've got to sort of reinforce our vessel and figure out, what do we actually want to be receiving? What do we want to be transmitting? And what do we want to be giving? Venus is also a planet of values, of our attitudes, of our habits. And for the most part, it's about relationships in general. And let's be honest, as far as relationships are concerned, we live in an exceptionally toxic culture. There's a lot of, even if we feel that we kind of got things figured out, we're bombarded with negativity about relationships a lot. Whether it's social media, whether it's our friends, whether it's movies, we all get these kind of impressions put on us. And that can be something that we open our phones up, in the next 5 minutes and see something, whether it's something that stems back from our earliest relationships to parents, caregivers, boyfriends, girlfriends at school. So throughout our lives, we get all these relationship impressions. And so we have toxicity, to and by the feminine, to and by the masculine. And so I feel that the Venus retrograde can be a really good opportunity for each one of us to find our place in the center of all that and work from what is true from our hearts, that solar principle, as opposed to the noise of the collective. So Venus retrograde, because when Venus is retrograde, she is closer to us on Earth, but she's also hidden. So we have to pull that energy inwards so we can update our attitudes, we can update our habits, our values, what's important to us. How do we want to be in relationship to, many things, many and all things? And what's also really interesting and valuable about this cycle is that Venus is in the sign of the exaltation of the sun. Our previous retrograde cycle of Venus was in Leo, the ruler of the sun. So there may be something connected to this where we had the Venus retrograde in the summer of Northern Hemisphere summer of 2023. Then the nodes moved into Aries, Libra, and then we are sort of finalizing this cycle with an eclipse in Aries. The nodes have just shifted out of Aries and Libra, and then we have this Venus retrograde in a very solar sign. So for some of us, this retrograde may invite us to really ponder, how do we want to be seen, heard? I mean, heard, it goes kind of with being seen in some respects, but also we have a Mercury retrograde in Aries coming up, but I'll not complicate this too much more than it already is. How do we want to be seen? How we want to be understood, adored, valued, and all of those types of things that we all want in a relationship, but not losing sovereignty, independence, and our sense of our truest selves in that process. So as I said, it is the most felt of the retrogrades. So it is uneasy. It's the things that we really value, whether it's money, relationships, desire. And when that goes through a period or a process of being upgraded, you may discover that what you once wanted, you don't anymore. And what does that look like? What does that mean? So when Venus stations right now, she's looking into the underworld, so to speak, and she's going to take her first steps into it. And to quote Game of Thrones, the night is dark and full of terrors, or full of horrors, or whatever it was. The night is long and full of horrors. I don't know. Game of Thrones was such a long time ago now, but Venus is entering scary territory. She doesn't know what's going to happen when you enter into the underworld. So it's again that internal, the facing of fears around the feminine essence, archetypically, as women. And of course, the feminine archetype, which is in all of us. And you don't have to be a woman to have that. It is a universal principle. So values, desires, needs, and wants, of which we all have, and they all change, they all evolve, and they all grow. And sometimes the process of that means we have to face, honor, and acknowledge things that we might be a bit scared to, don't want to face, but very much of a necessary process. So the key takeaway of my rant here is, what do you want? And that is such a loaded question for people. My son, he's 10. If I ask him what he wants, he has no qualms about giving me a very long list. I'm 47 and I've got to think about that. And this is it, isn't it? We get older, we get burned by life, we get the fear of rejection. We've been told no before, and we get all those real primal desires, um, rejected by the world. And so we reshape desire, we reshape wanting, we reshape what it means to um, unleash pure desire. And that's also very cultural too. So the key thing here, Venus in Aries, what do you want? And when you dive into that, it's actually quite liberating. But sometimes in the process of wanting and figuring out what that is, we have to abstain. And that's the part no one likes. So, in many cultures, many astrologers, many practitioners of various rituals, astrologically related or not, often go through some kind of process of abstinence. And Venus retrograde can be an astrologically ideal time to do that. So, abstinence can be from Venusian things. That could be alcohol, sugar. I mean, alcohol probably sort of a little bit Jupiterian too, but overdoing anything that is pleasurable. Sugar, alcohol, sex, spilling of seed, things of that nature. It could be an abstinence from spending money for just that retail therapy or emotional dopamine hits. Some people take breaks from social media as well because that is a massive dopamine firer. And dopamine really is necessary, but also can really block true connection. So when you abstain from something, yes, it's almost a little bit what our grandmothers might have taught us that distance makes the heart grow fonder. So there can be an element if you take something away with the Venus retrograde, you get the opportunity to create space and figure out, do you actually want XYZ thing? So, yeah, what do you want? And on the 23rd and the 22nd, so 23rd here in Australia, the 22nd in other parts of the world, Venus will cazimi the sun. So she fuses with the sun halfway through her retrograde journey. So we call that the inferior conjunction with the sun. And that will happen, as I said, the 22nd, 23rd, and Venus will be at 2 Aries at that point in time. And in aspect to Pluto, I mean, that's stuff I covered in the Golden Circle for March, but that will be a very potent time where Venus connected to the sun who's exalted, um, has a supportive a supportive sextile to Pluto as she switches sides with the sun and begins her ascent out of the underworld. So even though the night may be long and full of terrors right now, that sort of midway point, 22nd, 23rd, will be that switching of sides for Venus, where you might get a piece of wisdom, a sense of your armor being uh, renewed, your sword being sharpened, whatever analogy you prefer to use. And then she will rise up as the morning star. As she does that, she will then enter the sign of Venus, the sign of Pisces. And then when she is out of the beams of the sun and becomes visible again, she will be in her exaltation degree. And I'll talk about that more as we get closer to that. But I wanted to also draw the longer bow there so you can get a sense of the process and the journey that we're on that begins now. Now, if you've been following me on YouTube for a while, I'm kind of, a bit of a metal girl, and I love my medieval swords and, Viking stuff. Speaks to my DNA. But anyway, I recently came across a song that I thought was perfect for Venus retrograde. I can link it below if you'd like to watch the video, listen to the song. And the song is called Someone's Daughter, and the band is a band from Ukraine called Ginger, who I've loved for years at this point. So I'll just read you a few of the lyrics so we can kind of get a sense of what this journey can be about. You teach me how to be a man, though I'm someone's daughter. The path of the warrior was set for me, and I had to try on the armor. No, it doesn't suit me, and it feels so heavy. I'm frightened, and I'm so ashamed that I have to combat the world alone, that I have to swing my sword alone. So my gentleness is turned into rigidity, and once soft, the skin is nothing but the scale. One by one, I lead unequal fights. Eventually, the beauty's nose is broken and I faint. Life feeds me bullets and stones, and I stitch myself up alone. If I cry, I will run my tears inside of my blood-stained cheeks. I have found talents beyond comprehension. All my battles are a sight to behold, wading through the hardship alone, translating my body to soul. O brutal world, I'm not your enemy. So it goes on and on. You can check it out, but I thought that was a very good anthem for Venus retrograde. And if you're tired of facing battles alone, if you are sick of sharpening your sword alone, maybe this is an invitation to renew desire, renew what you want, and get maybe clearer about that throughout this retrograde. Okay, so let us take a look through the houses, shall we? And we give you a little bit of an insight as to what area of life that at least the Venus portion of this retrograde is going to, sorry, at least the Aries portion of this retrograde is going to bring for each of us. So Aries, Aries rising, it's your first house. And so usually what I see with the Venus retrograde in the first house is a general update of appearance. So this could be, whether it's a wardrobe update, a change of a hairstyle, maybe a tattoo, whatever floats your boat. There is going to be a sense of needing to change your personal style, your body in some way, shape, or form. You might decide to start something. And usually people say, don't start things on a retrograde. Now, with Venus, it's a little bit different, I think, because particularly when she's in your first house, this can be more about the sort of dissatisfaction of maybe how you feel inside your body or how you appear. And just that desire to change. It might be an experimental period for a little while as you figure out what that looks like. So there can be that external process of it, but it can also be internal, where you might decide that you need to understand yourself a little bit more, get in touch with yourself a little bit more, your habits, your attitudes, and what you're attracting into your sphere. So if you take a look at your life right now and what you're calling in or pulling in, and is that feeling great for you or maybe not? And that might be sort of what you're dealing with this. So if you are feeling a little bit lesser than right now, and when I say lesser than, what I mean in terms of energy, vitality, maybe even feeling uh, unattractive. Sometimes that can be it. Maybe you just look in the mirror one day and you think, oh, geez, I need to switch this up or change that or something of that nature. And that's okay. If you want to improve, if you want to change, go for it. Why not? Now, if you're Taurus, Taurus is, Taurus rising, this is your ruling planet. And she's gone into your most private zone right now. So you're probably going to need some time alone in order to really perhaps reflect on the last several years of your life. Because the last time we had Venus retrograde through Aries was early 2017. And then by mid 2018, Uranus came into Taurus for the first time. And so these cycles are sort of loosely intertwined. And so you might need a little bit of time right now to just sort of reflect on how life has changed for you, really since 2017, what ball was set in motion then, what chapters closing, what's opening and how much you've actually changed in the last handful of years. So I think this is quite more a real internal upgrade for Taurus risings because Uranus is going to um, leave your sign real soon, come July. So this Venus retrograde could really invite you to sort of sit back and ask yourself, am I living the life that I want? Am I being authentic? Um, but you really need to turn your energy and attention inward in order to figure that out. You're not necessarily going to find that through external means. So meditation would be really helpful. Um, uh, Being alone, alone with your thoughts, alone with your intuition, and basically quiet time. If you're in Club Gemini, as I am, this is your 11th house. So the 11th house is a really great manifestation house in terms of luck, um, friendships, connections, groups, communities, and all of that sort of thing. And so it might be this look around and realizing, about the company that you're keeping. Is it still whom you want to be keeping it with? Um, are the desires you have, are the values you have, are they in alignment? So this may not be the time to take a great deal of action on things, but you might be starting to consider that because Gemini are really going through some really profound changes in this part in this year and into 2026, especially with Uranus coming into your first house. And that's going to really shake things up. So the Venus retrograde could be a little bit of that precursor, that little bit of a, do I still want to be associated with these people? Are they right for me? Do I need to perhaps figure out who are my friends? Who are my enemies? Do I need to be aligning myself with others who have similar desires or attitudes that I have? Now, Saturn will be here um, come July, and or is it May? No, it's May. And that can be a real quality test to friendships. So this again is a little bit of that precursor to that. And this could also very much be connected to friends and alliances that are connected to your career or work or life direction stuff as well, because Venus will move back into Pisces. So it might also have stuff to do with uh, your work connections, your industry, your colleagues, potentially even your audience. If you do have, an internet following or, you happen to be a rock star or whatever. So, so yeah, that's really going to be a little bit of a hit on the friendships and the company you keep, and being mindful of perhaps the energy that calls people into your life because it's a very social and busy house. Cancer. Okay, so this is going to be all about your life direction and your career and how you're seen. On a practical level, this can be really good for dress for the job that you want, not the one you have, updating your social media profiles to reflect professional success or the life direction that you want, updating your LinkedIn profile or um, making a little bit of extra effort to go to like rub shoulders with the right people in professional circles. You also might be deeply questioning or examining, do I even want what I'm doing at a professional level? This might be having to do some reputational work as well. Venus, when she's retrograde, can sometimes be scandalous. So do be aware that maybe not everyone who smiles at you at work is your friend, and just be wary of some of that stuff as well. It doesn't have to be like a really bad thing or what have you, but one thing I certainly learned the hard way through life is that not everyone operates on the same agenda that you do. And so it might just be an awareness of that, particularly in the professional space, the workspace. But really, this is going to be you deeply reflecting on your life direction overall. And are you steering it in the direction that you want it to be going in? Now, if you are a Leo rising, this is your ninth house, and I love a ninth house transit. And this is really about your bucket list, the world being your oyster, and realizing that maybe what you wanted in some areas of life in terms of travel, study, philosophy, religion, your worldview, your broad picture perspectives are shifting and changing. So this could be a really good time to update your bucket list. Maybe you always wanted to go to XYZ place, but now you're realizing maybe I don't want to do that anymore. Maybe you're yearning to return to something or somewhere. This could also have philosophical and spiritual components, like a desire to connect to a higher power, whether that's religious, magical, astrological, and things of that nature. So the ninth house is really about aspirations. Um, and a connectedness to meaning and purpose. So that might be something that you've lost sight of, and you might need to rekindle the flame of desire in that area of your life. If you are Virgo rising, this is going to be a little bit of a financial cycle for you because it's the eighth house, and the eighth house predominantly is other people's money. So that could be the money that you receive in partnership, whether that's business partnership, marriage, inheritances. So we do sometimes see legacy, things that we inherit in that area as well. This could also speak to intimacy. Maybe not necessarily sex. That's definitely more of a fifth house event, but the connectedness, that deep, you can go and have sex with anyone, but it's the meaning behind it and the exchange of energy and the entanglement is more depicted by the eighth house. And so there might be a journey in that as well. Maybe you're wanting to more deeply explore that area of life, to be really seen, to be really adored in that area. You might just be wanting to put in motion some things that related to security around finances, making sure you've got what you need to have in place so you can enjoy more Venusian stuff in your life. This could be, yeah, by the time I'm XYZ age, I really want to be living off the interest of my investments, that. So you've got plenty of the luxuries in that area of life. So it is quite complex. The eighth house. It could also be about exploring some fears, phobias around desire, whether that is kind of desire around abundance, receiving, whether that receiving is in the physical realm, or more the energetic. Now, Libra, relationships. So Venus, your ruling planet, is retrograding through relationships. So it's a very kind of textbook journey of you needing to figure out what you want in relationships, and are your actions aligning with the things that you say that you want. Look, let's be honest, most people want love, most people want to be seen, adored, and all of that stuff. But are your actions and your habits and your attitudes and the way that you're approaching that reflective of the things that you say that you want? So if you're attracting the wrong people that are not in line with your values, well, you need to work on that. Maybe if you are in a partnership and you've kind of lost your way a little bit, this is a time to really kind of go back into your separate corners, figure things out so then you can come back together and work through things. So it's a really beautiful time to upgrade, but it may just be a little bit crispy as you go through it. And one of the things with Libra Obviously, it's going to be dependent on many chart factors, but Libra can have that tendency to go along to get along until you get to the point where you don't. Because remember, Libra is just Aries in a pink jacket. So, um, this can be very helpful in you realizing that sometimes the analogy I'm going to use, or the metaphor, whatever, I have a Mercury Neptune aspect happening right now. So forgive me if I've used the wrong term. I always think about this sort of dynamic as the thermostat and the thermometer, and Libra, as a rule, is the thermometer. It will just adjust to whatever the temperature is, but you're needing to learn in this cycle to be the thermostat. You can set the tone, the pace, the dynamics of the relationship, but you can't do that if you're just constantly in response to somebody else's energy. So you've got to set that energy for yourself in this cycle, or figure out how you can do that. Scorpio, sixth house. This is definitely at the most essential level. This would be really good to deal with any issues around sugar, alcohol, or whatever you're ingesting that is not good for your body. If you're overindulging, if you've got to early March and said, yeah, I wanted to lose 5 kilos by now, and you haven't done that, good time to really practice that abstinence of indulging. Also, how are you spending your time? You know, time is one of our greatest resources. So if you need to make some adjustments in your daily schedule, your obligations, are you just giving your energy too much to things that aren't important or don't matter? So it's your relationship to the idea of time, your schedule, and are you just working for everything and everyone else's joy and happiness, or are you um, doing that for yourself? You might even see some things to do with pets come up, retrograde in the sixth, general ailments, injuries, and things of that nature. So for Scorpio risings, it's definitely going to be a cycle just to sort of say, take care of yours, take care of yourself, and be mindful of your use of time. Now, Sag, this is going to be potentially a fun time for you because this is the romance, the fun, the joy, the pleasure, children, creativity, hobbies, outlets, and all of those sorts of things. Venus finds her joy in the fifth house. It's her natural domain. So this is going to be a cycle where you're having to realize, do I still want what I once wanted in this area of life? It's possible an old flame from the past may be rekindled or come into your sphere, or attempt to orbit your axis somewhat. You might return to an old hobby that you enjoyed. Maybe you realize that uh, need to return to the gym. Maybe you need to go back to playing more music, listening to more music, making more time for children and the things that really matter for you. Maybe the way that you have been enjoying yourself or spending leisure time is not really holding a lot of value for you, and you need to shift that. If you are on dating apps, or you're dating a lot or something like that, maybe this is a time to have a break and really figure, okay, what do I want? Rather than just kind of putting the net out there and seeing what you catch. So you can use these cycles really intentionally. If you're already in a relationship, this could be a time to rekindle a little spark of attraction and remember what it was like when the two of you were first getting together. And that's always a fun time. Now, if you are Capricorn rising, this is going to really bring up family stuff, family dynamics, family relationships. This could be a time where you decide to make some little upgrades to your home. Maybe you decide that you want to just, paint a wall, add some art, update cushions, pretty things up a little bit. But there may also be the idea of desire and what you actually want from your domestic life. This could be a change of postcode or zip code. Maybe you want to live in a different area of town, a different type of property. It could be a situation around flatmates, housemates, or your dynamics with family members and relatives and things like that. So maybe you realize, like, say, for example, you thought, oh, I never really wanted to buy my own house. Maybe you're starting to consider that because remember, Saturn, your ruling planet, is going to um, move in there in a few months' time. So this could be a time to actually less than a few months' time. This would be a time of like, what do I really want and where do I want to grow those roots and create more solid foundations in my life and commit to that dream with Neptune and Saturn coming through there. Aquarius. I love a third house transit. The third and ninth are some of my favorite transits, and they do get a little bit swept under the rug. This is going to be a time for you to remember those little things that bring you joy. Now, Pluto's been messing up with your stuff for a little while now. You might have forgot what that feels like to have some joy every day. So this could be as simple as waking up a little bit earlier before everybody else in your household does and just do some meditation, enjoy a coffee before demands are placed upon you. Maybe you've got something that you do. Maybe it's a yoga class, Pilates class. Maybe it's a podcast that you want to catch up on, or a book you want to read, or a creative endeavor that you want to return to that just brings a little bit more magic into your life. The third house is one of those kind of day-to-day type houses. And, what's the difference between a routine and a ritual? A ritual is just a routine with meaning. So this might be really injecting a little bit more ritual back into your life. Maybe you used to take yourself out to a coffee shop with your laptop once a week and just enjoy a nice cup of coffee and a piece of cake or something like that. Maybe you want to extend yourself to your neighbors and your relationship to your local group. Or people in your local neighborhood. Sibling dynamics could also come into play as a part of this transit. Now, if you're Pisces rising, this is going to be a financial cycle where you're going to need to really sharpen the sword of your ability to attract abundance into your life. This might be the recognition that you are worthy of more, you deserve more, but sometimes swallowing that humble pie that you haven't been going for it enough. Um, Maybe you are cruising and you're kind of comfortable and you're okay with that. Venus retrograde might also put some spanners in the works around finances for better or for worse. It could be an upgrade, though, recognizing that you can attract more money into your sphere than what you think you can. Also, watch spending. I would recommend that at a practical level because remember, Saturn's coming through, which can definitely be a contraction of money or getting more serious with money. So I would start also planting some proverbial seeds of not just what you desire now, but what you might desire 3 years from now by the time Saturn's done in Aries. So it is going to be about also attracting more support, accepting more support. And when we talk about abundance, it's not just money, it's also gratitude, appreciation for the support um, and the people you've already got in your life. And chances are you have more abundance than you think. And when you can appreciate what you've got, then that's when you really get more. So do watch your pennies, do watch your money. I would recommend that for sure, given the cycles that are coming through next. And use this as an opportunity to really upgrade what you want out of finances and money and all of those kind of things. So there we have it. That is a bit of a tour of Venus through the houses, a little bit of a thumbnail sketch for you. And then, of course, a deeper dive into Venus significations when she's retrograde in general. So just a reminder about the Contemporary Astrology Program. If you are curious to jump on board, please check out the link below. We do start next week. Sign-ups are coming in great. So I like to keep the groups a little bit small so I can invest individually into each of my students. Of course, there are plenty that just kind of fall off the wagon. Life gets in the way. I get that. There's no limitation to your access to the material neither. So, sometimes people do have to focus their energy on other things in a period of time. We do run the course on a schedule, but as I said, it is self-paced as well. Okay. Well, I wish you all the best for Venus and her retrogradation. And I'm just going to turn this real-time clock back on. And she's retrograde. So I actually did this through that technical transition from stationary to retrograde. There we have it. This will be out on the YouTubes real soon. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave me some feedback. What are you looking forward to? What are you not? And what house is it for you? I'd love to know. Until next time, enjoy.